Hey y'all, it's me, Bussy Levine, and welcome back to Hot or Hot. And today we'll be reviewing episode 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star Season 10, the Tournament of All-Stars! Our 6 queens in the pink bracket were challenged to roast each other in the first ever Rappin roast, and the runway category was a pun on Little Shop of Horrors, with a guest judge appearance by your favorite guest judge's favorite guest judge, Chappell Roan. So we'll be going queen by queen to break all that down, plus covering some drama regarding Mistress Isabelle Brooks addressing her haters over the past week, as well as the truth about where Jorgeous's killer verse really came from. First up though, let's catch up on the absolutely insane twist of events that was this episode's MVQ ceremony, which revealed that alliances aren't real and nothing matters. So opening this episode, we of course have Lydia with 3 points and Tina with 2 from last week's episode, and our 6 queens in the pink bracket are figuring out for the very first time how they're gonna be doling out their MVQ points. And this discussion kicks off with Kerri asking Tina how she would dole out the MVQ points, where Tina seems to suggest that she would be giving points to the best queen of the week, but MPB shuts this down real fast, saying that the bottom 4 should definitely be the ones trading points, and no more points should go to the winners of the previous week's episode. Naturally. Nicole then goes on to say that she wants to give her MVQ point to someone that's going to return the favor, and because her and Mistress were discussing a Brooks alliance from last episode, we think that she's going to give it to her, but then starts to give her points to Kerri instead. Because why she correctly was clocking that some kind of crazy shenanigans were going on the other side of the workroom between Mistress and Jorgeous. She saw the scheming and plotting from across the room and said, I'm not getting involved in that. But Mistress jumps in before she could actually give the point to Kerri and reminds her that they have a little Brooks alliance. So DP decides to trust Mistress here and gives her point over. Next to her, their point is Kerri, who gives her point to Jorgeous, thinking that she's got a little Texas sister alliance with her and Jorgeous will return that favor. However, we got the absolute gag of the season when the next person to award their point is Mistress Isabelle Brooks, and she decides to give her point to Jorgeous instead of NPB. And then Jorgeous, of course, returns that favor, giving her point to Mistress, which means Jorgeous and Mistress walked away from this MVQ ceremony 2 points ahead of Kerri and NPB, who now both have 0 points because they trusted the wrong people. And I have a lot of thoughts about this, but let me firstly say, let's give Mistress and Jorgeous their flowers for executing the gag of the season, the gag of the century. I did not see that coming. And I think them doing this reminded everyone there that this is, above anything else, a reality TV show competition where queens are trying to win and walk away with $200,000 and not play RuPaul's Best Friends race. And so from a competitive standpoint, I can respect what they did, but from the perspective of asking if Mistress and Jorgeous did the right thing, I would say probably not, because they all but promised their points to Kerri and Nicole, but instead decided to play dirty when it came down to it. And I guess the thing is, considering who we as fans know Mistress and Jorgeous to be on the show, this shouldn't be surprising. But I was gooped and gagged when they did what they did, as was every other person in that room. The jaw on the floor gaping mouth reactions from Kerri and Nicole were priceless. And what they did made for great TV, but I'm sure this will also put a target on their backs moving forward, which all could have been more consequential for them had they also not done so well in this week's episode. But since they were in the top this week and they're now so far ahead points-wise, they may get off without any punishment from their peers. But we'll circle back on that at the end of the video. Let's go ahead and talk about the challenge and runway this week. First up, Orange, you're glad to see her! It's Tina Burner, who in the challenge opens up the rapping roast with a kind of questionable couplet where she raps, I heard these roasts get dirty, so let me be a douche. Which I think is an absolutely insane thing to say because yes, she is playing with the idea of cleaning up the in the competition, but she is also calling herself a douche. Aside from the self-comparison to the douche though, her reads for the other queens are pretty good. To Kerri, she says, online Rue ordered Sasha, but you showed up. And to the Brookses, she says, 2 bricks in the house, oh sorry, I mean Brooks. A Trixie body double, the other no one books, which is one of the best reads for 2 queens at a time, I think, of this entire track. I also, of course, being a lifelong #1 Mean Girls movie fan, loved her read for Mistress, where she said, you're a mean girl, Mistress, a bitch, a jerk. All that aside, I'm still a fan. Danny DeVito, I love your work. They're quoting the line from Damien when he's in the girls' bathroom. The only part she lost me on was the end where she was going off about Rue needing to learn how to act and sing if she wants to get the EGOT. And while I did appreciate that she had some reads for Mother Rue, I just kind of felt like it was not as punchy as the reads for the other queens. The other thing Michelle was calling Tina out on was that her verse packed a lot of words, and to Michelle's credit, it absolutely did. I actually typed out all the lyrics and then did a word count in Google Docs and found that Tina was able able to stuff in 156 words about in her verse, which is more than every other queen tonight, where we saw like Nicole, Paige, Brooks with about 106 words, and then Kerri with as many as 141. Tina turned and burned that verse. This was hot. And over on the runway, the flower of her choice tonight is the lily, where she comes out on the runway as an unopened bud with a little note from her mom about her being a star. And then by the end of the runway, her flower bud opens to reveal a gorgeous flowering lily dress, which is actually an homage to her mother. And she later talks in this episode about how she wanted to do something really beautiful for her because she was recently diagnosed with dementia, and she wanted to celebrate their relationship that they had her whole life and how wonderful it was. I think the presentation and reveal of this dress was great. The colors are very pretty. The patterning is nice. The only thing I would have changed, aesthetically speaking, are how the petals kind of droop down. I was wanting a little more structure there for them to be lifted up, and then I wanted them a little higher on her waist. Like, had the petals opened up in her torso area, they wouldn't have been touching the floor, which should kind of give a wilted flower effect more than like a perky happy flower that was freshly bloomed. Overall, I'm gonna give this look a very safe hot. And last week we talked a lot about the Tina versus Mistress drama with the Good Morning meme, and we didn't at that time have the receipts on as to who slid into whose DMs, but Tina did update us on Twitter where she posted this. Show me the receipts. She slid into my DMs with a screenshot of her chat with Mistress, where we have Mistress coming in to there saying, LMA, I love you, and then later giving eyes emojis. And where we see Mistress down below later saying that she sent the eyes because she heard that she was also on that All-Star season. And next up, it's Nicole, Paige, Brooks, who, in the roast, starts off her verse kind of slow and spends some time introducing herself, but not really saying anything of substance. She raps, it's NPBFAG, Nicole, honey, oh, you know me. Season 2 OGs can't say shit to me. Where she then goes on to waste a few more bars just kind of rapping charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, and talking about her ass shots and face shots without actually roasting anybody. Once we finally get past her like paragraph of introduction, in her verse though, she has some really fun lyrics, like Tina Burner is Miss Turner without the waistline, and possibly a hernia, which is kind of awkward phrasing, but funny. But the read in her verse that made me laugh the most was her one for Kerri, where she said, Kerri's half my age, 4 times as work, a whole new face, but still dumb as dirt. Her leads for Lydia and Jorgeous though were kind of the same, where she basically was saying that these two brown nosed their way into this season of All-Stars. And as I did mention before, Nicole had the lowest word count in her verse, and so I do think she had a big missed opportunity on elaborating these reads or making them a little more complex. But the tea is, I still really enjoyed her verse because I just love her. Like, she's so entertaining to look at and watch, and the way she speaks I think sounded really nice in the track. And so even though she wasn't landing every punch in this verse and she didn't have the best reads, I did enjoy it enough, so I'm gonna leave her with a warming up today. And around the runway we have more mixed success from NPB tonight. She comes out in a beautifully painted prickly cactus costume with some flower decoration, adding some subtle soft beauty on the face and on the waist. And all things considered with this look, I was gagged to see her in this. It's kind of giving club kid mixed with a little bit of pageantry, and this is probably the most avant-garde look we've ever seen Nicole in on Drag Race. But what I was really unimpressed with was the second part of this look, and not just the actual second part, but how it was revealed. It was very clunky in how she's taking off the green dress like top to bottom, and the reveal itself was just really lackluster. She's basically just wearing a white catsuit with some sparse rhinestones and then I guess like lizards and then a snake around her neck. And the wig is pretty, but I don't think anything about what she revealed to, which is supposed to be the inside of a cactus, I guess, was as glamorous or as good as the pre-reveal dress. So I'd give the first part a hot, but the second part is a rot. Which reminds me that nothing I do on this channel would be possible without the generous love and support of my patrons at patreon.com/BussyQueen. That is my members only website where you can join and get access to exclusive content like my reactions to every episode of RuPaul's Drag Race that I review, as well as the ability to do things like vote on hottest hot polls every single week. And I would really love it if you joined today right now by clicking the link below. Thanks patrons for keeping this Bussy running. And next up is Lydia B. Kollins, where the B now stands for Brooks. And she is someone who's coming into this challenge with the, I think, unique advantage in being the only queen in this bracket to have won their roast on their original season. And she is here actually even at a slightly bigger advantage to some of the other queens because she gets to decide the order of this week's roast as a prize for winning the challenge in lip sync last week. And when I say slight advantage, I really do mean like by a hair, because traditionally in a roast, order would matter a lot. But in this roast, because it's delivered in a song, the order didn't really matter much. Everything was pre-recorded and lip synced on stage, which meant there was no opportunity opportunity for nerves to get in the way or for a roast to go bad, if you will, if the audience weren't reacting to the delivery of the jokes. Lydia's verse, though, was really great, and I loved in particular her read for Jorgeous that she opened up with. Born for drag, more like born to quit it. Third time's the charm, now it's time for you to hit it. And her read for Kerri was also savage. You'll always be the Tamar to Sasha's Tony. And her read for Tina was also great, where she said, breaking all these necks in the other direction. With you and being stunning, where's the connection? But I do think she took it a little too easy on Mistress, maybe because she's trying to like campaign to be her drag daughter, perhaps? Where the only read she really gave her was like, let me see you do a flip like Miss LePage. They're implying Mistress doesn't have the physical capability to do so. Lydia's verse and performance here were funny, entertaining, and I just love that she is proving to be a queen who can do it all. This was hot. And over the runway, we've got possibly one of my favorite Lydia runways that we have seen so far, where she is in this gorgeous black and gray velvet gown, and where she's really playing into the pun of the Little Shop of Horrors runway brief with Lydia 2 as a big, you know, Venus flytrap-esque puppets that has red flowers all around it that connect around her body to be like a boa. This felt very Mistress of the Dark meets that super campy Little Shop of Horrors reference. And this was really just such a great episode for Lydia. This look was hot. What did gag me about Lydia, though, was that she continues in this episode to campaign to be Mistress Isabelle Brooks's drag daughter. Which I say gags me because Lydia was sitting there watching Mistress actively betray Nicole Paige Brooks, yet she is here still trying to campaign to be the drag daughter and what possibly get some sort of alliance benefit out of that relationship. I don't know. If I were in her shoes and I was watching somebody do what Mistress did, I would not be campaigning for that alliance because clearly promises and trust mean nothing to her. And speaking of the villain of the season, it's Mistress Isabelle Brooks, who I think more than anyone else in this challenge comes into it with a fire under her ass because she knows, because of her behavior and betraying Nicole and causing Jorgeous to betray Kerri, she's got to win some points because she's not going to be getting any more MVQ points from the other bottoms. Mistress's reads for the girls, though, I think kind of had some mixed success. Her first one is for Lydia, where she says, how you beg to be my son but try to diss me. A lot of butch queens want to be my mini-me. Which I think sounded really nice and flowed great in her verse, but overall was not really that big of a diss on Lydia, because I don't think anyone's looking at Lydia and thinking butch queen. And then there's the Jorgeous read, where she's rapping about other queens not being able to match her pedigree. Just like Jorgeous, these bitches have no GED. Which sounded clunky to me because not having a GED could mean one of two things. Either you graduated high school and you actually have your diploma, or you dropped out and haven't taken the GED exam to get that diploma level certification. Of course, here knowing Jorgeous's background, we can understand what Mistress is trying to say here, but I don't think if you were unaware of Jorgeous not finishing high school, you could really understand what it was she was saying. But again, the rhyme scheme and the flow of what Mistress is saying was good, and I don't think she actually got a really good read in until she got to Kerri's section when she said, Kerri, you like to call yourself Tranos? Well, I'm the Iron Woman. Look what happened to Thanos. And like, that punches. I also like the Nicole Paige Brooks read. I can't read the bitch. Look how Nicole Paige looks. Hasta la vista. This was hot. And over on the runway, Mistress is giving us our second cactus look of the evening, where she is here stepping outside of her box a little bit and serving us kind of a more camp or anime cartoon take on the idea of what a cactus could be. Like, it's almost giving Pokemon or Digimon vibes, or even like Bowser from Mario with the way some of those spikes are placed on the look. And dare I say, this look does remind me of Ginger Minch's glamour toe look, but like in a really good way. I would though give this look a hot. And regarding the drama involving Mistress and Tina from this past week, we have a couple of tweets from her where she's addressing the haters, calling her a bully for some of her behavior on the show, and then also doing things like the Tina Burner makeup video she did this week. In this first tweet, she says, it's so strange to see grown-ass men and women comment on stuff about me and say I'm a bully. It's time y'all let go of your trauma and go seek mental help. If you can't watch a TV show without it triggering psychological issues, I think we have bigger issues. Weird Fs. And where she several days later more directly addressed someone making this bully accusation, saying, I agree. I think she does this because she was bullied herself. She has no family, she's insecure, and she's also fat. This isn't what drag is. I used to be a Mistress fan, but not anymore. Mistress Isabelle Brooks, she will always be famous. And next up, she was born to do drag. It's Jorgeous, who in a kind of surprising turn of events absolutely demolished this challenge. Her reads across the board were solid and savage. She starts rapping, I'm pretty and I'm funny and a lip sync Turner. None of these things describe Tina Burner. And to Kerri, she said, don't get it twisted. Rue would love you too if she remembered you existed. But my favorite from Jorgeous, and maybe my favorite read of the entire night, was when she said Mistress was looking like Godzilla in a 1-inch heel. And to quote Alyssa Edwards, beast. Her only read that was kind of like whatever to me was the one for Lydia where she said, "Lydia, you think you're gonna win? Bitch, I pity ya." And by the time we got to Jorgeous's verse, we had heard several reads for Lydia, which honestly just didn't punch. And I think it was very clear here that these queens did not know Lydia at the time that they wrote these verses, or else all of the reads for Lydia, of course, would have been funnier. And indeed, we find out from Megami that the queens not only wrote their verses before going on the season, but also in some cases, like Jorgeous's, had other queens write them. Megami tweeted this out the day the episode went live. "Can I be honest and spill some hot tea? So I did happen to assist Jorgeous with writing this verse before filming. And for those keeping track, that's now 3 verses I wrote that won. And so to Jorgeous and Megami, I say congratulations on writing a killer verse. This was totally hot." And over the runway, Jorgeous looks absolutely killer in her Venus flytrap fantasy, which has to be one of my favorite Jorgeous looks we've seen from her on the runway. I love the severity of this look and having all those Venus flytrap teeth on every component of this outfit and how everything hugs her body really nicely. And the one thing I will say is like, no, this isn't a super unique silhouette or type of look from Jorgeous. It still has a lot of whimsy and I enjoyed what she's serving. I'm gonna give this a hot. And last but not least, closing out our Rappin roast is Kerri Colby, who decides to do her verse differently than everyone else by not naming any names in her roast, which I think was just a disaster of a decision and one that I still am not understanding. Especially because as she's going over her plans to do this, we see cut-in confessionals of her reading every single queen in the workroom. And I was like, okay, well, if you have these reads like ready to go, why are you not just naming the names in the track? And even though she didn't really roast anyone by name, she had some decent rhymes like, "I'm a prophetess, ain't one bad built bitch stopping this." And I also liked, "Cause I could never be a bitch from obesity, keep the Getty giving diversity." But then she kind of lost me at the end when she just starts rapping about guac and chips and queso. Because it had me wondering, like, at what point did we leave the roast universe and just go into like what I'm ordering at Taco Bell? Kerri completely ignored the assignment tonight. This was a rot. Over on the runway though, Kerri absolutely kills it tonight. She is giving us a Birth of Venus meets underwater sea creature Little Shop of Horrors plant fantasy. And the whole presentation of everything she's doing is super cool and avant-garde. She starts off at the back of the stage with a giant opening shell Venus flytrap mouth and has this like really cool blue braided tail or seaweed around her body, which as she takes another step forward is ripped off to reveal she's just wearing a little bit of sparkly applique. And down to the Alexander McQueen-esque shoes, everything she presented just looked so beautiful on the runway tonight. And I also super appreciate that the execution of that double reveal was probably not at all easy. This look was hot. And as for placements this episode, the judges picked Jorgeous and Mistress Isabelle Brooks as their top 2. And while Jorgeous is a selection there I can 100% back, I actually kind of thought Mistress was like 3rd or 4th place for me tonight. Because again, she sounded amazing and the delivery and flow were great, but it was just some of those reads I think were a little clunky. And instead of Mistress there, I would have put Lydia or maybe even Tina Burner. But truly all the queens in this verse, besides Kerri, who just kind of ignored what she was supposed to do, did really well. Like this was an impressive challenge across the board. And so I think what happened was the producers saw what was going on with Jorgeous and Mistress at the beginning of the episode and the drama and that they were stirring, and they decided, let's fan the flames. Let's put some more coals on the fire and go ahead and put these 2 in the top so we can watch the building burn. And so we see these 2 lip sync to Hot to Go by Chappell Roan, and I was kind of whatever about this lip sync, mostly because I thought the mix of the track was a little odd, and it's also a strange track for a lip sync because it is kind of lacking some of those more dramatic peaks and valleys, even though it is a song I love. As to who performed it the best though, I would say Jorgeous. By like a little bit, I was entertained by her choreo for every single word of the track, even if some of it maybe didn't make a lot of sense to do in this track. But what I would like to see more from her in her lip sync performances is a little more facial expression, because she is still doing that thing with just like the blank doll eye stare and the moving mouth. And I'm like, where's the smiling? Where's the excitedness? Where's the joy? And Mistress in this lip sync was good, but I think her performance was not really anything to write home about here. And so I was gooped and gagged. And the judges decide that Mistress and Jorgeous are gonna tie in this lip sync, and then even more gagged when RuPaul says, you're not both getting a point, you're gonna split a point. Each of you get half a point. What is that? It just didn't make any sense to me initially, but the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, this is the producers doing something in like a half committed way that could either benefit these queens or hold them back, because that half a point is either going to be enough to push one or both of them into the finale, or possibly keep them behind. Because as we saw from the first bracket, 5 points seems to be the magic number to get the queens into the finale. And so I think had they gone ahead and done 5, it might have already pushed them preemptively a little too ahead of the rest of the competition. Either way though, I still think it was a weird choice, both spiritually and aesthetically. As my final thoughts on this episode though, I genuinely enjoyed every second of it, from the dramatic beginning with Mistress and Jorgeous to the ending with the insane splitting a point nonsense. And whoever in the casting department decided to put these 6 queens together specifically and then give them a roast challenge is brilliant, and they deserve a raise. I'm also going to totally advocate here that we do more rapping roasts in place of the regular roast. Like, it was infinitely more entertaining. And as for hottest hots this week in the challenge, I'm going to give it to Jorgeous, and on the runway, Kerri Colby. I also asked my patrons to vote on their hottest hots over at patreon.com/BussyQueen, and they voted for Lydia B. Kollins in the roast and Kerri Colby on the runway. I also want to give a special shout out to Ashton, Felicia, JBR, Laura, Matthew Burns, Nicole, Minst, and Will and Tanner, who were all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier at patreon.com. See you later. Love ya.